Hare Krishna today. Oop, just give me a second. Okay. Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Girivaradari Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Yashodanandana Jai Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Vihari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai The window to the spiritual world Shri Shri Radha Madhava Bhajan by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupada Paramhamsa Privajakacharya Astottara Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupada Paramhamsa Privajakacharya Astottara Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi Haribo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Devamrita Swami Nitinamine Pracharipur Vraksham Cha Bhakta Charpa Vinita Parartha Tapikarunyam Yasya Sarve Jitena Maha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya They're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the king of all books. And we are in 7th canto, chapter 9, Prahlad pacifies Lord Nrsimhadev with prayers, text number 40. Oops. Goodness, what is the verse meter here, Prabhu Taraka? Do you know?
Yes, it is the same throughout pretty much the entire chapter. It's like Brahma Samhita.
Oh. Jivaikta chutta vikarshati ma vitripta. Doesn't seem. But if you say so. Jivaikta chutta vikarshati ma vitripta. Shishnon yatas tvag udaram shravanam kutaschit. Granon yatascha paladrikva chakarma shaktir. Bhavyaha sapatnya eva geha patim lunanti. Jivhaikto achyuta vikarshati ma vitripta. Shishnon yatastvag udaram shravanam kutaschit. Granon yatascha paladrikva chakarma shaktir. Bhavya sapatnya iva geha patim lunanti. Jivaikto achyuta vikarshati ma vitripta. Shishnon yatastvag udaram shravanam kutaschit. Granon yatascha paladrikva chakarma shaktir. Bhavya sapatnya iva geha patim lunanti. Anyone want to try?
Jivaikato chuta vikarshati ma vitripta shishnon yatash tvag udaram shravanam kutaschit granon yatascha paradrik karma shaktir bhavya sapatnya ivage hapatim lunanti.
Anybody else feeling courageous? This is a real tongue twister. That's all right. Speaking of tongue, Jiva, the tongue. Ekataha, to one side. Achyuta, O my infallible Lord. Vikar Shati, attracts. Ma, me. Avitripta, not being satisfied. Shishnaha, the genitals. Anyataha, to another side. Tvak, the skin, for touching a soft thing. Udaram, the belly, for various types of food. The Udaram is where we get the name of our Lord and Savior. Shishirada Dhamudaram. Dhamma Udaram. Dhammo means to be bound up. Udaram, around the belly. It's tied up by the belly. Damodaram. Shravanam, the ear, for hearing some sweet music. Kutaschit, to some other side. Granaha, the nose, for smelling. Anyataha, to still another side. Chapaladrik, the restless eyesight. Kvacha, somewhere. Karma Shakti, the active senses. Bhavyaha, many. Sapatnyaha, co-wives. Eva, like. Geha Patim, a householder. Lunanti, annihilate. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It's Prahlad Maharaj continuing to pray to Lord Nrsimhadev. My dear Lord, O infallible one, my position is like that of a person who has many wives, all trying to attract him in their own way. For example, the tongue is attracted to palatable dishes, the genitals to sex with an attractive woman, and the sense of touch to contact with soft things. The belly, although filled, still wants to eat more. And the ear, not attempting to hear about you, is generally attracted to cinema songs. The sense of smell is attracted to yet another side. The restless eyes are attracted to scenes of sense gratification, and the active senses are attracted elsewhere. In this way, I am certainly embarrassed. Purport. The human form of life is meant for God realization, but this process, which begins with Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord, is disturbed as long as our senses are materially attracted. Therefore, devotional service means purifying the senses. In the conditioned state, our senses are covered by material sense gratification. And as long as one is not trained in purifying the senses, one cannot become a devotee. In our Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, we advise from the very beginning that one restrict the activities of the senses, especially the tongue, which is described by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur as most greedy and unconquerable. I think you all know that song. You should know. It sounds very upbeat than the melody, but its meaning is pretty heavy. Sharira avidya jal, jodanri hatahe kal, jive phele bishaya sagare, which means this body is a lump of ignorance, and the senses are a network of pathways leading to death. And of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and difficult to control. Love it. Of course, the rest of the song is very happy, because by engaging the tongue and the senses in the service of Gaurnitai, Krishna, one becomes purified and liberated. But it opens with a bang. So that's how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes the tongue as greedy and unconquerable. Continuing on with the purport, to stop this attraction of the tongue, one is authoritatively advised not to accept meat or similar uneatable things, nor to allow the tongue to hanker to drink or smoke. Even the drinking of tea and coffee is not permitted. Similarly, the genitals must be restricted from illicit sex. Without such restraint of the senses, one cannot make advancement in Krishna consciousness. The only method of controlling the senses is to chant and hear the holy name of the Lord. Otherwise, one will always be disturbed, as a householder with more than one wife would be disturbed by them for sense gratification. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya-manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. What a powerful verse and purport from Prahlad Maharaj and His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. While reciting these pranam mantras, I remembered that I need to contact a devotee named Gopika Kanta. Hare Krishna. I hope it's not too late, but I'll do that later, of course. Herein, our major problem is illustrated by Srila Prabhupada, by Prahlad Maharaj. Our senses are wild. They're always pushing us for sense gratification. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says that this lust, which destroys everything, kama esha, krodha esha, rajaguna samudbhavaha, mahashano mahapatma, vidyanam iha vairinam, says it's our enemy. This kama, it's our enemy. It's not actually, despite the incessant ramblings of popular politicians, it's not actually some ethnic group somewhere is your enemy or some political opponent. Krishna says that this lust is the enemy and it's situated in the senses. And left unchecked, it transforms into wrath and devours and destroys everything in this world. And so it's very serious that we have to control our senses. It's no trivial thing. Here Srila Prabhupada is saying in the purport that as long as one is not trained in purifying the senses, one cannot become a devotee. In our Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, we advise from the very beginning that one restrict the activities of the senses, especially the tongue. If the senses are not purified, they cannot come in contact with Krishna, because Krishna is not material. Our materially covered senses can only contact objects which in illusion seem to be separate from the Lord. Like an intoxicated person that doesn't see things as they really are. The senses do not see the real world, but rather try to see everything as a source of selfish enjoyment. This has to be purified. If we hope to hear Krishna in the holy name, to see Krishna with eyes tinged with the salve of love, to speak of touching Krishna, tasting Krishna, another intimate connection with Krishna, enjoyed by his dearmost devotees, then we must purify the senses. When they are pure, then they can see that everything is connected to Krishna. Everything in this material world is part and parcel of the Lord. When the senses are purified, then they can perceive Krishna everywhere. And then Krishna is never lost to them. That's the result of purifying the senses. It's no trivial thing. Sometimes we read through these texts where Srila Prabhupada is saying you have to control the mind and the senses. And we think, oh, I've heard this so many. Prabhupada says this on every other page. I've heard it so many times, so it's not a big deal. No, no. Because Srila Prabhupada says it all the time, it is a very big deal. Prabhupada is very intentional in the sort of points that he would make and the points that he would repeat again and again and again. Uh, Upadesha, what is that shloka? Upadesha, Tat Pratvena Nirmalam. That shloka, which says my point exactly. But I can't. Sarvopadi Vinir Muktam Tat Pratvena Nirmalam. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. That the real definition of devotion or bhakti, devotional service, is that when completely purified, relieved of all sorts of false designations, illusory identifications, sarva upadi vinir muktam, when we're relieved of that, of thinking, I'm an American, I'm a man, I'm this group or that group, vinir muktam, when we're finally relieved of it, that burden, and tat parat vena nirmalam, when the senses become purified, they're faultless, nirmala, they no longer have any fault, any flaw of trying to separate the object from Krishna. That's the flaw of the material senses. Thinking, it doesn't belong to anyone, therefore it's for me. Like some thief that sees an unattended bag. Oh, it doesn't belong to anyone. It must be mine. This is the mala. But tat paratvena nirmalam, when the senses are free from this fault, then rishikesha sevanam. Then these senses can be engaged in the service of the master of the senses. Krishna, that's devotion. Bhakti means devotional service. Rishikesha sevanam bhakti uchate. Not just bhakti means I should get a good buzz all the time and I should feel butterflies in my stomach, like some sort of Hollywood notion of what love is. But that my senses are engaged in service to the master of the senses. That's the definition of devotion. And if our senses are not controlled, if they're not purified, then one cannot become a devotee. Prabhupada says in the conditioned state, our senses are covered by material sense gratification. And as long as one is not trained in purifying the senses, one cannot become a devotee. This sounds very harsh. What an ultimatum from Srila Prabhupada. But actually, this is love. The symptom of love is to control the senses, to please the beloved. Most of us know, I think almost everybody in this room is involved in some sort of relationship at some point or another, especially with a significant other, a spouse. And part of love for your spouse is to control your senses. That means, especially for a man, my eyes are fixed on this object alone, my legitimate sense object in the form of the wife. My speech, if I'm going to say sweet words in praise, it's going to be for this person, not for someone else. That's love. Love begins with duty. That I have an obligation because I have love for this person. Therefore, I have an obligation and a duty to engage my senses in their service. Anyone who cares about someone else will be very careful to guard their senses so that they can be used in the service of the beloved. Always thinking, how to contact that person, how to say nice things to that person, how to see them, admire them, and to not be distracted by something else. This is not some sort of cruel religious authoritarian dictatorship. When Srila Prabhupada is saying one must control the senses to become a devotee. Rather, this is the doorway to real love. Without that dutifulness, that my senses are meant for the pleasure of the beloved, without starting with that, one cannot hope to have the ecstatic, overwhelming emotional bhava and prema that's described in our literature. First, one must feel the real burden of self-control. I'm committed to Krishna. And so I want to engage my senses in Krishna service, and I want to carefully avoid those things which may hijack my senses, distract them from Krishna service. So Prabhupada's statement is poignant, as always, relevant. We should not be offended, but take it very seriously. In the conditioned state, our senses are covered by material sense gratification. And as long as one is not trained in purifying the senses, one cannot become a devotee. So our training is here. We're doing it every day. For example, we're engaging our ears and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam class, I hope. I hope I haven't put anyone to sleep yet. And we are engaging our tongue in chanting the holy names of the Lord, tasting the Lord's prasadam. Atha Shri Krishna namari na bhaved grahim indriya sevonmukhi hi jivado swayameva sparatyada. Sevonmukhe, again, seva with the jiva, with the tongue. Then one can become purified and one can experience the transcendental name, form, quality, and pastimes of Krishna. One can perceive them with spiritual senses, first by engaging the tongue in service. Tongue seva. Sevanmukhi jivado. So we should take stock and ask, what tongue seva am I doing today? What are all the things I've got planned for my tongue? How am I going to engage my tongue in Krishna service today? Today being Dwadasi, it's very easy. It says in the Nectar of Devotion by Srila Rupa Goswami that Ekadashi is the mother of devotion, but I've always been a bit partial to Dwadasi myself. So nice to break fast and eat bread. So we should make a plan how to engage my tongue in service to the master of the senses, Hrishikesha. Make a plan for how I'm going to use my tongue to chant the holy names of the Lord and to tell others about the holy names of the Lord. The successful yogi is always making plans for their senses. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalayar indriyayarapi yoginam api kurvanti kuryan something something Rama Rama Hare Hare. It's a great shloka. Just trust me. Yoginam api sarvesham, that the yogi is always making a plan for how to engage their senses. Kurvanapi nalipyate. That was it. The yogi is always making plans for their senses, how to use the mind, the intelligence, the ego, the six senses, the senses of action, but only for the purpose of purification. That's what Krishna says. We're making a plan, just like we're making plans to pay all the bills, or making plans to take care of the family, or making plans to clean your space. You got it at least in a mental note, and sometimes we're writing more physical notes. We should make the exact same plans to engage our senses in Krishna's service. That's called sadhana bhakti, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. At this time of day, I'm going to be using my senses in this way in Krishna's service. And at another time, I'm going to be using my senses in another way in Krishna's service. This is not some sort of rigid authoritarianism. This is love. Just like a man who has a female partner is very careful to not allow his senses to be distracted by something or someone else. Sometimes it happens in a man's life that some other woman might, despite his being married, might try to, Just one of the, actually, I shouldn't even tell the story, but there's this one woman who said something so inappropriate to me about a year or so ago while Nandini was away in Kazakhstan. I shouldn't even get into the details. And I was like, Hare Krishna. So if there's some sort of someone else is making some move, if you have an object of your love, then you're very careful to control your senses, not allow them to be distracted by something else. So in the same way, the devotee makes a plan for the senses to be engaged in Krishna's service. This is actually love. And so Prabhupada's statement is so relevant, so important. Of course, it's very easy to control the senses by hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. The transcendental sweetness of Krishna. That's our program, not just a rigid self-flagellation, torture by restriction from all the things that we're attracted to, like fasting next to a fridge, but rather to get a taste for something even better. Then the attraction for something lower occurs automatically. That's the program of Krishna Bhakti. That's how the senses are best controlled. As Krishna himself says, right, in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Who knows that verse? Because I can't remember. Um, One experiences a higher taste. You all know what I'm talking about. That great shloka. God, I've done like 600 Bhagavad Gita classes talking about that one shloka, about ceasing such engagements by experiencing higher tastes. And yet,
Ram Drisva Navartate.
thank you. Param drishtva nivartate. Experiencing a higher taste, one is fixed in consciousness. So the higher taste is to always hear and chant about Krishna. I got to say the whole shloka. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. The process of controlling the senses is to get an even better flavor, more rasa, which is to be had in Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Not just to try to restrain oneself, but to get a superior taste, param drishva nivartate. When there's a higher taste, when there's something even better, then it's very easy to give up something lower. In the middle of an ecstatic kirtan with all the devotees where everyone's dancing in ecstasy, followed by wonderful ecstatic prasadam. Nobody's thinking, wow, I wish I had some cheap product from China right now. I wish I could buy some new thing right now. Nobody's thinking in that way. In the middle of ecstatic kirtan, I wish I could enjoy in some other way with my senses. When there's the higher taste, automatically the lower taste is eliminated, annihilated, completely forgotten, relegated to obscurity. We've all experienced this. We all know it. We just have to do it all the time. And then the senses are very easily controlled, like serpents, like poisonous serpents that are prone to attack, to bite, to kill. But those serpents can be hypnotized by some melodic flute playing, which I actually saw in Vrindavan once, of all places. I wasn't expecting to see that. Just at the very end of the Parikram path, there's some Prabhu. He's actually playing a flute and had some snake in a box. Hare Krishna. So just like the serpents can be controlled with melodic flute playing, so similarly, our voracious senses, which are so strong and impetuous, which are more difficult to control than controlling the wind, they can be very easily pacified by the sweet, sweet symphony of Krishna's holy names. So when we're chanting, we should just try to hear the sweet, sweet music, the rasa, and then it is accomplished automatically. Srila Rupa Goswami says in the Upadeshamrita, Syat Krishna Nama Charitari Sitaptya Vidya, that we can't hear, we can't taste the sweetness of Krishna's name. Like a person infected with jaundice, hepatitis C, a condition of the liver. Everything tastes bitter to them. It affects the whole digestive system, so that everything on the tongue tastes very bitter. In our ignorance, our avidya, Rupa Goswami says, we can't taste the sweetness. Syat Krishna Nama Charita Adi Sitapti Vidya. We can't taste the sweetness of the holy name, the character, Charita, Adi, which means etc., the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. We can't even taste it. It's like, it's just mist on us. Our tongue is not inclined towards it, like a child doesn't want to eat healthy vegetables. There's something about the development of children. Their tongues, obviously, they're so infatuated by the sweet tastes. They can't appreciate, complex flavor or palate in a dish. They just want that sugar. So we're very crude. Our problem is that we cannot taste the sweetness of Krishna's name, character, form, and activities. Syat Krishna Nama Charitani Sitaptya Vidya. It's avidya. We're in ignorance. Pito patapta rasanasya narochikanu. Kinfadarada anuvidam kalu saiva jushta. Svadvikramad bhavati tadkaramula hantri. But Rupa Goswami he's in awe. He's actually expressing his awe and his amazement. He's saying that even though the tongue, being afflicted with ignorance, cannot taste the sweetness of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna, it's just so remarkable that by carefully tasting and chanting these holy names every day, very carefully, that means according to a vow, very carefully, then that ignorance is purified. That disease is cut off at the root. Tad gada mula hantri. Mula means a root. It's completely sliced and cannot grow anymore. Just like if you pull out some weed at its root, it's done. So the cure for this ignorance, which makes the hearing and chanting about Krishna sometimes a burden, sometimes a challenge for us, the cure is to hear and chant about Krishna. Rupa Goswami is saying, this is remarkable. It cures the disease, just like someone who has jaundice can be cured with sugarcane juice. The sugar tastes bitter, but by taking the sugarcane juice, they can actually be relieved of that condition. So that's incredible. What good fortune. Delicious medicine. So the solution to all of our problems is to hear and chant about Krishna. This is actually my point I've been trying to make for about 30 minutes here. Solution to all of our problems. Bhavo sadach chotra manobhiramat. The solution to all of the problems of this bhava, this material world, is to take that panacea, that perfect, flawless, one-size-fits-all medicine, the pill that cures everything, and that is to always hear and chant about Krishna all the time. In this verse, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that I'm not attracted to your sweetness. But we know in Prahlad Maharaj's example that his attraction for the sweetness of the Lord is profound. Well, I don't know if I could say that actually. His relationship is with Lord Nrsingadev, who does not manifest the sweetness. Lord Nrsingadev, like many avatars, manifests his Aishvarya and Ishvara, opulence and supremacy. Prahlad Maharaj, of course, is no doubt attracted to that, despite speaking this verse that we're reading in Srimad Bhagavatam. But us devotees, while in love with all forms of the Lord, we aspire to become especially entranced by Krishna's sweetness. Actually, this is a very important topic, especially in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, those who are followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The comparison, if you will, between the Lord's opulence and the Lord's sweetness. As followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it is our opportunity and our good fortune to follow the path of sweetness. The Lord himself described this to Sanatana Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 21. It's described how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes a comparison between the Lord's opulence and the Lord's sweetness. And in describing the Lord's opulence, he says so many incredible things, that the Lord's opulence is like a vast ocean. You cannot see the other side. We cannot even know the depth. It's just incredible. He gives some example stories, like how Brahma goes to see the Lord, and he's checked by some doorkeeper who says, "Who's here?" And Brahma says, "I'm here to see the Lord." And the doorkeeper says, "Well, who are you?" He says, "My name's Brahma. I'm the engineer of the universe." And the doorkeeper says, "Well, which Brahma?" No. He goes to Krishna. "Which Brahma? Which Brahma is it here?" Brahma finds himself totally shocked and bewildered to realize that there are other Brahmas, masters of so many other unlimited universes with many more heads, indicating their sovereignty over much larger and much more sophisticated universes. Brahma is just like totally shocked to see this incredible opulence of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this Madhya Lila chapter 1, he describes all the Lord's opulence in this way. He goes on with so many wonderful examples. And that he says that the opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is like a vast and unlimited ocean, but his sweetness, however, is not just like an ocean on one planet, but is like a celestial torrent that merges all the three planetary systems in love. This is the comparison he makes between the Lord's opulence and the Lord's sweetness. The sweetness of Krishna is still far more powerful. In fact, it is the most significant quality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I should say the most distinctive quality of the form of Krishna is his sweetness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this Madhya Lila chapter 21, in this discussion with Sanatana Goswami, says that Krishna's Nara Lila, his pastimes in the form of a young boy in Vrindavan, is the supreme. It's the topmost. It's greater than all the other forms of the Lord and all the other pastimes that exist. Rupa Goswami elaborates on this with a famous verse, Shamam eva param rupam puri marupuri vara vaya kaishwarakam deyam adya eva parorasaha. The sweetness is supreme. Rupa Goswami says in the Padyavali, the form of Shama Sundara is the supreme form. The city of Mathura is the supreme abode. Lord Krishna's fresh youth should always be meditated upon, and the mellow of conjugal love is the supreme mellow. This is the supremacy of God. Shamam eva param rupam. Once upon a time in New Zealand, my spiritual master was leaving Auckland to continue his travel somewhere, and I was helping him to pack a few things. And he left a little notebook, hardly 4 inches long on each side, a tiny little notebook with maybe 100 or so pages in it that were blank. And I said, Gurudev, do you need this notebook, as he was packing his things? He said, no, you can keep it. He gave me this notebook. I thought it was empty because I opened it quickly. I saw the pages are mostly blank. He said, you can have it. I took this notebook back to the Brahmacharya ashram and I flipped through it, and there was only one shloka written on one page. And it was this, Shamameva param rupam puri maruparivara vayam kaishwarakam deyam adya eva paro rasaha. The form of Shama Sundar is the supreme form. The city of Mathura is the supreme abode. Lord Krishna's fresh youth should always be meditated upon, and the mellow of conjugal love is the supreme mellow. Param, param, param. This is the greatest. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying to Sanatana Goswami. The topmost understanding of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is his sweetness. It eclipses even his opulence and majesty, as is demonstrated all the time by the residents of Vrindavan, even though they know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They have that knowledge. They've heard from Gargarishi. They've heard from Purnamasi. They've heard from Narada. Still, their understanding of the Lord's opulence and majesty, his Aishvarya and his Ishvara, becomes totally eclipsed by the Lord's sweetness. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to make this very clear to Sanatana Goswami and to all of us. So therefore, this Madhya Lila chapter 21 is very important to hear this comparison. He speaks more about the unparalleled beauty of Krishna. It's so attractive that it attracts even himself. Krishna is attracted to himself. And not in the way that we look at our body. I mean, most of us aren't attracted to our own bodies. We look very closely. We know just exactly how disgusting it is. But in some arrogance, sometimes we find ourselves attractive in the illusion of false ego. But Krishna is actually attracted to himself, bewildered. Who is this incredibly attractive form? How is it that Srimati Radharani is feeling an attraction to this form? What is the love that she experiences in attracted to this form? These are the confidential, internal monologue that leads to the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just so that the Lord himself can experience the sweetness of the Lord, to taste it. I often give this example in our preaching at the Bhakti Yoga Center, that it's even better to taste sugar than to be sugar. So the Lord himself wants to experience his own beauty. That's how attractive it is. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. He says many things in that chapter, but concludes with the vibration of Krishna's flute, which he says maddens the entire world, especially the gopis. I mean, they go absolutely crazy when they hear the sound of Krishna's flute. It's described by the acharyas in their commentary on the Venu Gita chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, how they're struggling with the sound of the flute. Karshan Venusvanayar Gopir, Gopinata Shriyestanaha. How it completely bewilders them. They're thinking of the flute as the enemy, their eternal enemy, which is unjustified and usurping the sweet nectar from the lips of Krishna. In their madness, they condemn the flute. I can't get into the details because it's beyond my qualification, but it is really ecstatic to consider how, in attraction to the Lord's sweetness, the gopis go mad. Karshan, Venusvanayar Gopir. Karshan means like struggling with it. They're grappling with it. They're challenged by it. Karshan, Venusvanayar Gopir, Gopinata Shriyestana. This is part of Krishna's sweetness. I'll just conclude with one little excerpt, that's all right. Of 6 opulences, Krishna's sweetness is supreme. Sri Krishna, the undisputed master of unlimited universes and possessor of all strength, wealth, fame, knowledge, and renunciation, is only partially known through these ever-triumphant potencies. What are those potencies? Strength, what is it? The Shadaishvarya Purna? Strength and knowledge and opulence and renunciation and beauty and fame. He's only partially known through these ever-triumphant potencies. But complete appreciation of his glory is achieved by taking shelter of his mind-enchanting beauty, the source of all opulence, and a resident of his extraordinary form. The cardinal nature of this beauty is the supreme sweetness. This sweetness is the essence of all that is sweet. It puts to shame all sweet things, and it is the ability to taste sweetness where it exists. The sweetness of Sri Krishna radiates its essential nature through a subtle effulgence and spreads out from his transcendental limbs and resembles a gentle golden glow. The most exquisite part of Govinda's form is his radiant face. The sweetest part of Krishna's moon-like face is his enigmatic smile, which is the silver moonshine of his countenance and spreads its nectar throughout the world. Without the radiance of Krishna's smile, sugar would be bitter, honey would be sour, and nectar devoid of taste. This is actually some commentary from the gopis. They're having a discussion, talking about Krishna entering into the forest with his cowherd friends. They're watching him as he starts his day of cowherding, enjoying pastimes with the boys, fighting demons, imitating frogs and swans and fish and monkeys and things. But as they're watching Krishna, as he goes about his cowherding activities, they're discussing what is the best understanding of Krishna. They're saying, even knowing Krishna as Shadaishvarya Purna, as the possessor of all six opulences, one still cannot fully understand him, knowing him as such. But the full understanding comes from knowing his sweetness. And so we have such wonderful opportunity to always get a daily dose of Krishna sweetness by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the nectar of devotion. There are so many wonderful sweet literatures to hear, so much sweet kirtan to hear. By this, the disease of our ignorance is purged from our material senses so that one comes in contact with Krishna at all times and is relieved from the burden of material identification and material senses. The process is very simple and very sweet, so we should do it every day with enthusiasm. Hare Krishna. Stop there and ask if there's any questions or comments. As much as I'd love to get into some of the details about the gopis and how they react to the sound of Krishna's flute, but I'm not yet there. I'm only just like Sarvama Prabhu once described me as being like the little kid who's looking through the window into some fancy restaurant that I can't afford to buy. I'm like that street kid, Oliver Twist, just looking through the window into this restaurant, watching everybody dine on delicious and expensive foods, but I'm just some poor street kid, just like wondering, what is that like? So similarly, I love to read about all these wonderful descriptions of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, but I'm just like the kid looking through the window, just wondering, what is that really like? What is that? What's going on there? Still, maybe someday I'll get some qualification to go inside and to taste in the association of wonderful devotees. I guess if there's no comments or questions or anything that anyone wants to
Lots of
say.
comments.
Oh, Haribo, dear Tarika Prabhu. Good morning. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag, Herr Yashodev. Was ist los?
Herr Tarika Prabhu.
I want to thank you for another exceptional class. My goodness, I never tire of hearing the ambrosial words emanating from your lotus lips. Your spiritual master has made a gem of you. Boy, so much to comment on here. So many comments, so little time. I don't know where to begin. I want to mention something that I've been thinking about that has relevance here. We're talking about devotional service, and as Jivatmas, we have some minute independence. It's extremely minute. We have basically two options. We can take shelter of the spiritual nature, or we can take shelter of the material nature. If we take
Yes, that is the scope of our independence, isn't it?
Pardon?
That is the scope of our independence.
Yes. Krishna explains in the third chapter of Bhagavad. What is that verse? Third chapter of Bhagavad Gita explains that under false ego, living entity is thinking that he is the doer of activities that are actually carried out by the material nature. So you take shelter of the material nature, from that point forward, there is no independence. The modes of nature are actually doing everything. So the scope of our independence is minute. But we had to take shelter somewhere. You take shelter of the material nature, you get kicked. You take shelter of the spiritual nature, and it's ecstatic. But in order to, geez, so much we could say about this. Maybe I should come back to it because I want to talk about an example that Srila Prabhupada gives. He talks about regulative principles, the importance of regulative principles. And you touched a little bit on this, and that's what got me going. That the importance of the regulative principles. That in the absence of that, you never really get off the ground. You can't get bodily platform. The regulative principles are a necessary springboard. You got to do that. You got to get some fundamentals in place, or you can't really move forward. And Srila Prabhupada would speak about this quite often during initiation ceremonies. He would give a little talk before initiating devotees, and at that time he would explain some things about the 10 offenses to the holy name, and the importance of avoiding those offenses. That if you commit those offenses, your progress is checked. And he explained, he compared this to trying to ignite a fire. If the wood is dry, it ignites very easily. If the wood is wet, it will be very difficult trying to ignite it. I'll give you an example. This was an initiation ceremony Srila Prabhupada performed in Los Angeles in 1970. And so he said, 10 kinds of offenses. They are mentioned in the paper. There was Srila Prabhupada used to distribute a sheet of paper with the 10 offenses to all of the new initiates. So he said 10 kinds of offenses they are mentioned in the paper you should avoid and follow the regulative principles. Just like if you ignite fire, if the wood is dry, then the fire very quickly takes place. And if it is moist, wet, then it takes time. So avoiding these 10 kinds of offenses and following the rules and regulations will quickly ignite the fire of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra by itself is powerful, and even one is contaminated. But it will accelerate your progress if you follow the rules and regulations and avoid the offenses. There's another instance in which Srila Prabhupada elaborated further. He says, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, there are so many, such a big instruction book. He's talking about the many different instructions of rules and regulations of Vaishnavachar. He says, it is not that whimsical, but still we recommend that go on chanting. This will help you, anyone. That is also good. It is exactly like if you ignite wood for fire. If the wood is dry, the fire takes place immediately. And if it is moist, then it takes time. Only smoke will come. So smoke is not required. The blazing fire is required. Then if from the wood, if simply smoke comes, you cannot take any work out of it. There is traces of fire. As soon as there is smoke, there is fire, but it is not useful. It is useful for troubling your eyes only. What is smoke? Smoke means also fire, but you require blazing fire, not smoke fire. So blazing fire takes place if the wood is dry, immediately takes place. Otherwise, you go on enjoying the smoke. Be satisfied. When there is smoke, there is fire, but it will not be useful. It will be useful gradually. The wood will dry, but it takes a long time. Just try to understand this example. You require the flame, not the smoke. If you are satisfied with the smoke, that is your business. If you simply be satisfied, the smoke is also fire. Unless there is fire, why the smoke comes. That's a good argument, but smoke will not help you. It requires the flame. The flame cannot be produced if the wood is wet. Wet means materially contaminated. He said, so pure devotional service is flame. All other things are smoke. You must get the flame. Otherwise, your business will not get done. So naturally, we fan when there is smoke. As soon as the flame comes, there is no smoke. So again, fan it. Let the flame come. Then everything will be all right. Otherwise, be satisfied with the smoke. You are cooking with smoke for 300 years. That was a room conversation with Burry John and some other devotees in Melbourne, 1974. So there are many instances in which Srila Prabhupada gives this example, but the essential point that he makes is that in devotional service, in the absence of the regulative principles, you are trying to ignite wet wood. The regulative principles are the means by which you dry the wood. And in that condition, then fire comes immediately, the fire of Krishna consciousness, which is where the fun begins. The real action of Krishna consciousness begins when you come to the point of actually igniting the fire of Krishna consciousness. It doesn't come when the wood is wet. You have to dry the wood, then you get serious fire, and with that fire you can do something real, something serious. That's when Krishna consciousness gets really interesting. That's when it becomes very exciting, and extraordinary and miraculous things happen. Every little thing is amazing and just astounding. That's what happens in Krishna consciousness, but it can't be experienced and appreciated when you're still working with smoke, because you haven't dried the wood. So the rules and regulations, the regulative principles are important for coming to that stage of having actually devotional service, having real fire to work with and not just smoke. So that is the means by which we get off the bodily platform, where the real action begins. And then we want to stay on the spiritual platform, not the bodily platform. In the beginning, one may vacillate between the spiritual platform and the bodily platform, the material platform. Or one may fall down from time to time due to weakness. There are various reasons that one may fall down. One is, and what does Krishna say in again the third chapter? Yagartat karbinon yatra loko yam karma bandhanaha tad artam karma konteya mukta sangha samachara. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. So the bondage of material nature occurs immediately if we're not engaged in devotional service. So if you simply neglect devotional service, you will fall down. You have to always be engaged in devotional service. At every moment, you've got to be doing something for Krishna, or you will wind up doing something for the material nature, because there's no in between. You have to take shelter of the spiritual nature or the material nature. So anyway, but if you take shelter of the spiritual nature, you have Krishna's protection. You will not fall down. He makes it easy. There's Srila Prabhupada stated in a Bhagavatam class in Los Angeles in 1974. He says, if you catch up Krishna's lotus feet very tightly, then you will not fall down. But if you make a show of so-called brahmachari, so-called grihasta, so-called sannyasi, then you will fall down. We are experiencing that. Then you must fall down. Krishna will not tolerate a defaulter, a pseudo devotee. Maya is very strong. Immediately capture him. Come on, why are you here? Why are you in this society? Get out. That is Yamaraj's duty. But if you remain in Krishna consciousness, Yamaraj will not touch you. Your death is stopped from the point where you begin Krishna consciousness. So we have to be genuine and we have to keep ourselves engaged in devotional service. You can't be idle. You can't neglect devotional service. You'll fall down. Perhaps not immediately, but given time, you will fall down. The other way that one falls down, of course, is if you it's all about the rules and regulations. You neglect the rules and regulations, you'll fall down. You the 10 offenses to the holy name. If you offend a Vaishnava, very serious of the 10 offenses, you will absolutely fall down. That's stated again and again all over in Shastra that if you offend a Vaishnava, you must fall down. You will absolutely fall down. Sometimes devotees fall down, they don't understand why, or they have a hard time trying to get off the bodily platform and they can't understand what the difficulty is. Offenses, Prabhu, you got to stop committing offenses. If you commit offenses, you will absolutely fall down. You can't let that happen. Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, 10th chapter, text 23, um, from Srila Prabhupada's purport. If one offends that exalted personality, and what to speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one certainly becomes most abominable, bereft of the results of pious activities. One must fall down like Ravana and other demons. So we have to be very careful about offenses. So the rules and regulations are meant to get us off the bodily platform and inoculate us against offenses. And I've taken a lot of time, so I'm going to shut up here. But I want to thank you again for an exceptional class, as always. I always enjoy hearing from you, Prabhu. It's very nice. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Targa, bro, you fired up this morning. Thank you so much for reminding us to follow the four regulative principles. I think I will try to do it today. But as you're pointing out, that it's so valuable in ways that it's hard for us to understand unless we actually do it for a significant amount of time to make the wood dry so that a real fire of love for Krishna can burn. So thank you, Prabhu. As always, just so chaste to Srila Prabhupada, speaking verbatim from Srila Prabhupada. You were like a real representative, representing Prabhupada all the time. Thank you for that service. Hare Krishna. If there's no
I
other...
have a quick question. Prabhu?
Oh,
Thank,
Haribo Janeshwari Mataji.
thank you again, Prabhu, for your wonderful class. Very enlivening, as always, like Tarika Prabhu said. I had a quick question. What happened to Gurudev's notebook? Do you still have that?
Oh, I'm sure. I used it. He told me to. But that was a long time ago in the Brahmacharya ashram, so I don't know where it is.
Oh, no.
But I cherish that one page where he wrote in his own handwriting, Shamameva param rupam puri madhupuri vara. So he was meditating on this, where
Beautiful.
Rupa Goswami is saying that this is what you should meditate on, the form of
Mm,
Shyamasundara.
beautiful.
Sorry.
Hopefully it will surface again.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All right, dear devotees, thank you for tuning in to Srimad Bhagavatam class this morning. May you all be blessed with pure devotional service in this lifetime. Om Tat Sat. It's worth a shot. And have a happy Dwadasi. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo.